Webinar title, CCWIS Reviews, a deep dive into 3 prevalent risks. Webinar date, November 20th, 2024. Children's Bureau Division of State Systems logo.
Hello and welcome to the Child Welfare Information Technology Systems Managers and Staff webinar series brought to you on behalf of the Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families Children's Bureau. Today's webinar is entitled CCWIS Reviews, a deep dive into 3 prevalent risks.
Slide title, participating in today's webinar. Text on screen demonstrating how to participate is explained by the moderator. Questions can be emailed to cwis.questions@acf.hhs.gov.
We do want to encourage active participation throughout today's webinar, and there are a few ways that you can participate. The first way is that you can submit your questions throughout the presentation by typing them into the Q&A feature, which is located at either the top or the bottom of your screen, using the icon similar to the one on the right of my screen. If we need further clarification regarding your question, we can unmute your line and you can ask that question live for us. Also, after today's webinar, if you continue to have questions, you can either submit those to your analyst directly, or you can submit those to cwis.hs.hs.gov. We also are going to be asking for your participation in a couple polling questions, so we encourage your active participation when we move to those.
Slide title, Introductions. Presenter names are read by the moderator.
I'd like to now introduce today's presenters. First, you'll hear from Stephanie Sarber, Federal Analyst with the Division of State Systems. Then you'll hear from Alex Camberis, Federal Contract Support of DSS. Sujatha Minak Shisundaram, also Federal Contract Support. You'll hear also from Tiffany Gardner, Federal Contract Support, and then myself, I'll be moderating your session, and my name is Phil Breitenbuscher.
Slide title, Learning Objectives. Text on screen describing what attendees should be able to do after participating in this webinar is read by the presenter.
Thank you for joining us today. Today's learning objectives. You should have a better understanding of the prevalent risks encountered in CCWIS TA monitoring reviews that we've done over the last 4 years. You should be able to appraise your own CCWIS project for the challenges discussed today and apply strategies to mitigate these types of risks. And you should be able to utilize resources and tools from our website, as well as technical assistance to continuously assess and monitor your projects. Next slide.
Slide title, Agenda. Agenda items are read by the presenter.
We have a packed agenda today, so we will be discussing our approach to CCWIS assessments, provide a summary of strengths and challenges identified during 4 years of TA monitoring reviews, and we'll take a deeper dive into 3 risk areas that have been prevalent in several reviews, including ineffective search, poor data quality, and a lack of separation of business rules from core programming. Next slide.
Slide title, DSS Approach to CCWIS Assessment. 4 bullet points summarizing the DSS approach to CCWIS assessment are read by the presenter.
DSS approach to CCWIS assessments is a bit different. Under CCWIS regulations, we've taken a different approach to assessing CCWIS systems than the reviews done under prior SACWIS regulations. The primary goal of TA self-assessment tools and TA monitoring reviews is really to assist the Title IV agencies with conforming to federal regulations for CCWIS and advanced planning document requirements while supporting your child welfare program and business needs. The state must demonstrate that its system conforms to federal CCWIS and APD requirements. We will assess when we're there if CCWIS is built modularly and meets CCWIS design requirements, and we'll assess how the system supports continuous improvement in child welfare service delivery, aligns with agency goals and objectives, and reflects child welfare business processes and agency workflows. Compliance with CCWIS regulations is aided, monitored, and assessed throughout the project's life cycle, from planning all the way through maintenance and operations. via all technical activities, not just limited to TA monitoring reviews. The review process is not a one and done. There's no certification as a compliance system. It's critical that systems are able to meet ongoing and changing needs of the child welfare programs they support. Ongoing self-assessment by agencies is encouraged to support continuous improvement and ensure alignment with federal regulations applicable to CCWIS and agency program needs. Proactively identify risks, system shortcomings, or deficiencies throughout the system's lifecycle. Identify gaps and determine strategies for improvement, change in scope, risk mitigation, or course correction. Risks identified during reviews are addressed on an ongoing basis through the APD updates and during our monthly calls. So through the reviews and monthly calls, we've been able to identify the need for additional technical assistance and federal guidance to assist the state in resolving potential or outstanding compliance issues. Okay, Phil, I think we have a poll question next to kick us off.
Slide title, Audience Poll Number 1. A poll question and the multiple choice options for the answer are read by the moderator.
Yes, we do. Okay. So for our first poll, we'd like for you to respond to this question. Would it be helpful to publish results of our technical assistance monitoring reviews? You can select one of these choices. Yes, yes, as long as it's anonymous, no. And if you do select no, you can enter your concerns in the chat. Excellent. You can see that about half of you have already participated. Thank you for your active participation. We appreciate it.
Hey, Phil, I just wanted to clarify because I want to make sure the audience understands, and I didn't realize until this moment, so I apologize. But I want to make sure what the audience understands what we're thinking about doing is publishing the letters. So, you know, like AFCARS publishes their letters from the reviews. And so I just want to make sure people understand that that's what we're asking. You know, would you be amenable? You know, we can still publish them regardless, but I would like some feedback on it.
Thank you for clarifying that, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you. And we do have 100% participation. Are we able to share those results? Yeah, so it looks like about, oh, here we go. Okay. So here's the results we have. And Teresa, you can respond to this if you like. So about half, or a little over half, 52% said yes, as long as it's anonymous, and 45% said yes. Just a few folks said no. And so that's where we stand on this poll. With that, I think I will hand things over to Alex. Alex?
Slide title, 3 Prevalent Risks from DSS Reviews. A file folder with a magnifying glass icon next to text that reads ineffective search, a clipboard icon next to text that reads poor data quality, and an icon showing 4 shapes: a circle, diamond, another circle, and a square with arrows pointing from one to the other next to text that reads no separation of business rules from core programming.
All right, good afternoon. I'm going to be talking about the first of the 3 risks that were mentioned in the agenda, ineffective search. Next slide, please.
Slide title, Deep Dive Ineffective Search. The title sits above the same file folder and magnifying glass icon from the previous slide.
All right, so as I talk about ineffective search, I'm first going to talk about why search is important and why having a good quality search tool or tools can make a big difference. Then I'm going to share some real examples from our review letters and cover some of our recommendations in those reviews. So next slide, please.
Slide title, Why Search Functionality is Critical. 9 bullet points summarizing the consequences of ineffective search functions are read by the presenter.
So many of you on the call are from program areas, and maybe these are more common to you. Some of you may be from the IT side, and maybe they're not so familiar to you. But ineffective search has real world consequences, which is one of the reasons why, as we've done our reviews, we've so focused on this. Children can be left in unsafe situations. Permanency can be delayed. There are quite a few bullets on the screen about different real life examples where we have seen the consequences of poor search, and maybe you're familiar with from your agency as well. A big one that we have encountered are duplications, because poor search tools allow for the opportunity to add people without having done a comprehensive search. There are quite a few duplicates in many of the systems we have evaluated so far. Next slide, please.
Slide title: Search Sample Review Finding. An example of a review letter is shown on screen as it is described by the presenter. From top to bottom, it includes the problem statement in bold, with 2 sections of regulations listed and linked directly below it, a section that describes the problem in detail, a section that describes the action needed or must statement, and a section that lists the technical assistance recommendations as 4 bulleted sentences.
All right, so on the next 3 slides, I'm going to show a real example. The font is small. I have no intention of reading this or expecting you to read it. It's for illustrative purposes only. But I wanted to highlight that when we write a letter, we're doing several things after review. We're highlighting in a problem statement what the problem is. We're connecting it to the specific sections of regulations. And then we're writing a description about that problem, whether it was through interviews, system demonstrations, or review of the evidence or documentation provided. This is a real example of the name of the CCWIS hidden to protect the innocent. And let's go to the next slide. After we've identified the problem, we then put what the action is needed, usually a must statement. So the agency or the state or the tribe must, and then take action. In this case, improve the search functionality. Then let's go to the next slide. Then we offer some recommendations. Some of these are more consequential than others. Some of them may just be FYIs, and we clarify that. But they are all ways that we envision the state could go about addressing the problem. And there are other ways that maybe we didn't think of, and we welcome agencies coming up with their own solutions. So again, not going to go over word by word here. It's just illustrative of our approach to reviews and the findings. We had been asked at conferences at ISM and on some of our state calls to provide an example, and this will be in the PowerPoint slide deck. We've sent it out already earlier in the week, and it'll also be posted to our website after 508 compliance of this slide deck. All right, let's go to the next slide.
Slide title: Some Housekeeping. The presenter describes how the next 3 slides will cover examples of functionality encountered during CCWIS Technical Assistance monitoring reviews. Language from the example review letter in italicized bold font will be shown inside a rounded corner box, and a bullet point that reads mitigation or correction strategies sits below the box.
This is a little housekeeping slide that's going to set up the format for the next several slides that I do and then my colleagues do during their sections of this PowerPoint. So in the next 3 slides, I'm going to provide some examples in the little rectangular shaped window there. It'll be actual language from reviews we've completed, maybe truncated to fit on the screen, but they're the real findings we've had. And then followed by several bullets at the bottom with our recommendations or mitigation strategies the state has taken to fix them. So I'm going to go over 3 examples. Let's go to the first one on the next slide.
Slide title: Search Example 1. Example text from a review letter in italicized bold font is inside the rounded corner box, and the 3 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
All right, a lot of words on the screen. And all the things in the box, again, are from real reviews, not necessarily all the same review, but all of them are similar. In one state, the search required a near exact match. Any deviation from the spelling of the name, for example, Amy instead of AMY, it was AIMEE. It wouldn't find, and there was no fuzzy search. Another state, it didn't display the expected results even for people already known. They had to use a second form of qualification, whether it was date of birth or something like that. Another state, didn't have the closest match near the top of the potential match list. There was no ranked order. So the system user was having to sort through dozens, if not hundreds of records for common names. And again, another state didn't have any relevance ranking or similar feature or any way to sort the results. So these are all very real things that we found in our reviews. And down at the bottom, there are 3 bullets, just some ideas on ways to do this. There are existing database tools or third-party tools or platform, if you're using a platform, to improve or replace the default search function. Alerts in the system when users are creating a person that has some similar criteria or matching similar demographic information to someone already in the system to help prevent duplicates. Perhaps involving users in more testing during the search development to look at how they use the search tools and make sure it meets their needs. So again, there are probably those of you on the phone looking at this thinking there might be other solutions. These are just some we honed in on for these particular examples. Next slide. I'm going to go for a couple other examples.
Slide title: Search, Example 2. Example text from a review letter in italicized bold font is inside the rounded corner box, and the 3 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
So in one system we reviewed, there were separate global searches and then other searches within an area. For example, in intake, there was a search, in case management, there was a search, but they all had different rules and criteria used to create them. So they often didn't display the same results. And users were sometimes frustrated with, where do I go to search for things? Another system didn't let address be used as a factor in search. And then finally, the third example from another state was using Social Security or other things could not be used to refine a search. So especially for common names, or if you're searching blindly for someone and you had certain information but didn't know other parts of it. So these are all real examples, and you may be asking yourself, or telling yourself rather, our system does better, or it wouldn't do this. But these are all things that are real and have come up in our reviews, and we've seen many of these more than once. Sometimes it's just not having clear expectations or understanding of what you're purchasing, or what you're purchasing doesn't quite live up to your expectations. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about some possible solutions in a few slides. But a couple bullets here for you. In the first example where they had different searches depending on what section of the CCWIS you were in, we had recommended to that state that they build a single search function that could universally look at this, and then you add the filters that you need depending on what your purpose for the search is, and then use the system users to rigorously test this. Enhance search features to add more information that can qualify or filter the results. And finally, we recommended that they develop a report to identify duplicate persons, because we were concerned that this search had been around long enough that there may be situations where search didn't catch people and duplicates were created. All right, next slide.
Slide title: Search, Example 3. Example text from a review letter in italicized bold font is inside the rounded corner box, and the 2 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
All right, so search is very complex. This is an example from another state. It requires the users in that state to repeat searches in multiple locations. Again, similar to the previous example of something in intake or versus case management. The added complexity to this one was there's some case history from a legacy system, and different searches had to be done in the legacy system as opposed to the new CCWIS. And so therefore it's really hard to get a clear picture of and being confident of, if you're doing a search, you're finding every record out there. So we recommended this state review the existing logic to expand to search also the legacy system. And then we also recommended they incorporate human-centered design principles into a redesign of this to try and make sure the intent or desire of the users was being met at different points in the process of search. So I've just quickly gone through three slides of examples from real reviews where we encountered problems with search. And it's on our slide deck today because search continues to be something that appears many solutions out there struggle with. But there are positives. There are states that have successfully implemented some good search tools. And I'm going to cover the next slide here.
Slide title, Robust Search. Header reads, what does robust search look like? Followed by 12 bullet points that read from top to bottom. Bullet point 1, approximate, aka fuzzy. Helps if unsure about spelling, inexact matches. Bullet point 2, Boolean search. Utilizes operators like and, or, and not to combine or exclude keywords. Bullet point 3, predictive. Suggests possible completions, helps with typos, and improves user experience. Bullet point 4, semantic results. Include contextual meaning. For example, soda when searching for pop or Coke. Bullet point 5, phonetic. Displays results that sound similar to search terms. For example, Amy spelled A-M-Y or A-I-M-E. Bullet point 6, associated, relational, connections between people and or cases. Bullet point 7, rank choice. Search algorithm assigns a relevance score to making sorting results easier. Bullet point 8, natural language uses everyday language instead of keywords to search. Bullet point 9, artificial intelligence, AI-powered, utilizes machine learning and AI algorithms to improve search. Bullet point 10, unstructured, searches through content of documents, messages, and narrative fields. Bullet point 11, metadata, search based on attributes like tags, date created, author, etc. And bullet point 12, federated, results displayed from multiple systems or databases.
About what does some robust search tools look like. I'm not going to go over every one of these, but they are on the slide deck for you to peruse afterwards or look up more in literature if you want to know more. But even just starting at the top, just having a fuzzy search is not as common as we would think in this day and age in 2024. It's a relatively simple add-on. Many default systems have it, but for some reason, many CCWIS aren't including it. It helps with inexact matches or spelling errors, or a caller maybe at an intake who maybe kind of knows the kid's name or the family name, but doesn't know the full spelling. It's a really helpful tool, all the way down to different options there for natural language or AI powered or searching, crawling through unstructured data to find information. One state used unstructured data searches to find potential relatives who were known to the family early on in the case. And, you know, the kid is in foster care for several years and maybe people have shifted on the case and different caseworkers come and go, but the kid had family members in the case. And when they switched to unstructured data searches, they were able to find that information as one use case of how that came into about. And then I mentioned the Amy earlier for phonetic. It's a type of search. Again, these are all things that either a state has done or is out there in the marketplace for third-party tools, or even some default platforms have them involved. Some states do it custom. And then lastly, we have seen a lot of states using the U.S. Postal Service APIs to reach out to Postal Service for address confirmation when doing a search. So again, here are a bunch of examples. It's not all negative. We have seen some very positive searches out there, but unfortunately, poor search leads into bad data quality, which we'll be talking about next. So I will turn it over to my coworker.
Slide title, Audience Polish 2. The poll question and the multiple choice options are read by the moderator.
Tiffany, after Phil goes over the second audience poll.
All right, thanks, Alex. Okay, so we have our second and last poll for today. And in this one, you can choose all that apply. The question is, how do you ensure your agency's search functionality is effective? And there are multiple selections you can choose from. So we are opening that up now. I'll give you a few seconds. So solicit feedback from end users, robust testing, conduct a process analysis and reengineering, use HCD principles, discuss search capabilities with other agencies or states, provide specific or enhanced training, create logic or business rules that improve search, develop an effective process for preventing and managing duplicates. Systems users can search using multiple criteria. System can track and or audit search history. Systems offer ranked choice results. I'm not sure, or none of these, or other. All right, looks like now we have almost half of you have responded. We appreciate that. We'll give you a few more moments to respond to this poll, and then I'll share the results with you. And just also, you may need to expand that poll or scroll down. It looks like we are 3/4 of you or so excellent. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give you one more second. I'm going to share the poll now. All right, so it looks like over half of you are have the ability to search by multiple criteria. And let's see, and also half of you have used robust testing. And the least is I'm not sure, so that's great. And also did human-centered design around search, and then system track audit searches. So you can see where folks are at across the country, and ensuring functionality or search functionality is effective. All right. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Tiffany.
Slide title, Deep Dive, Poor Data Quality. The title sits above the clipboard icon.
Thanks, Phil. And we're going to do a deep dive into poor data quality from CCWIS Reviews. Next slide.
Slide title, Data Quality, Sample Review Finding. An example of a review letter is shown on screen as it is described by the presenter. From top to bottom, it includes the problem statement in bold, with 2 sections of regulations listed and linked directly below it, a section that describes the problem in detail, a section that describes the action needed or must statement, and a section that lists the technical assistance recommendations as 4 bulleted sentences.
We're going to start off by discussing a finding regarding duplicate data entry. CCWIS should prevent the need to re-enter data already captured or exchanged, and also be capable of sharing and reusing as a separate component. I'm briefly going to describe this example like Alex did. I won't read word for word, but again, you will have the slide deck. The finding from this review was in regards to investigation information having to be re-entered. This information should populate to other areas as needed. The state did not have a data model to support consistency and prevent user errors. The user was required to provide data that was already available, such as CCWIS ICWA status, caregiver information, and placement and services. As we know, duplicate data entry can result in data quality issues, inaccurate decision-making, and potential safety issues. We're going to discuss the actions needed by the state to address this finding. The state must eliminate duplicate data entry and enforce data integrity to ensure data quality. Users must be able to collect, update, and enter CCWIS data properly. We want to make sure that's addressed prior to the go live date. Some technical assistance recommendations for this finding. Identify areas of duplicate data entry and develop a plan to eliminate. Provide updates in the APD. Ensure that data dictionary is updated and maintained regularly to capture all data fields, and make sure there's a single point of data entry across the system. Next slide.
Slide title, Data Quality, Example 1. Example text from a review letter in italicized bold font is inside the rounded corner box, and the 3 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
We're going to go over a couple of examples, the findings, and then we'll talk about the mitigation strategies as well that we found through CCWIS Reviews. One of the first was the state only converted 5 years of legacy data. So that meant the users had to search both the legacy and the CCWIS in order to be able to gather that full family history. The CCWIS was unable to retrieve case and proper documentation from the legacy system, and employees not receiving access. So then they had to rely on other staff to be able to help them retrieve that information for the case. Also found licensing staff using Excel to track crucial information such as background checks or renewals and required training. And that was due to the CCWIS unable to run reports to display this information. So some mitigation strategies. In the planning phase, complete data analysis and cleanup activities to avoid delays caused by incomplete data conversion activities. Add automation to help notify system users when key milestones are approaching, like background checks and renewals. And then update training to address how to manage workloads and run reports to support your staff. Next slide.
Slide title, Data Quality, Example 2. Example text from a review letter in italicized bold font is inside the rounded corner box, and the 4 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
Second set of examples. CCWIS did not provide ICWA data elements and prompts to ensure the agency met the requirements, or it defaulted to no tribal membership. Also, documenting a plan of safe care was captured in 2 screens, but the report only pulled from 1, which led to underreporting. And then foster and kinship parent data elements entered twice, leading to possible data discrepancies. So some mitigation strategies. Make sure you collect information once, even if displayed on multiple screens, and use data modeling. Update standards to include reuse policies to help developers follow. Use automation to support workflows, and update that functionality within CCWIS to reflect state policy or agency policy for collecting demographic information. Next slide.
Slide title, Data Quality, Example 3. Example text from a review letter in italicized bold font is inside the rounded corner box, and the 4 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
The last set of example was regards to save. So in the first finding, we found limited save capability. The system did not automatically save when a user enters information. So therefore, there's a risk of duplicative work if that's not saved manually. Child welfare staff drafted the work in Microsoft Word and then pasted it into CCWIS due to no autosave functionality and often losing work. And then no auto or quick save functionality. Users experienced the data loss when the application timed out due to security settings. Loss of data really requires the user then to re-enter data, which is the potential for data inaccuracy. So some strategies to implement. Flexible save options based on user-driven workflows. Support save modes for work in progress. For large entries or those critical data elements, use autosave, and also provide timeout alerts and recovery options for unsaved data. I'm going to pass it to my colleague Sujatha to do a deep dive into no separation of business rules.
Slide title, Deep Dive, No Separation of Business Rules. The title sits above the icon with the 4 shapes.
Thank you, Tiffany. Now I would like to introduce the last section where we would be focusing on the lack of separation between business rules and core application programming logic.
Slide title, Why are business rules so critical? The purpose of business rules and 5 bullet points summarizing why business rules are so critical are read by the presenter.
So let's start by understanding why business rules are so important. In child welfare systems, business rules ensure consistency, conformance to requirements, and efficiency, making them as a foundational capability to effective system operations. So while the purpose of business rules is clear, that is ensuring alignment with requirements or compliance and maintaining data quality and supporting decision-making, how we design and manage them directly impacts their effectiveness. So well-categorized and thoughtfully managed rules framework, or a structure, not only standardizes the business workflows, but also it provides a flexibility to adapt to changes in business requirements without disrupting the entire system. Excuse me. This adaptability is particularly critical. Why? Because we have different categories in child welfare systems. It's not an exhaustive list I'm going to present, but it includes eligibility, placement, case management, finance, and others that directly impact the service delivery and outcomes. These are all just examples, but not an exhaustive list as I said, but this would give us a starting point for our further discussion. Next slide, please.
Slide title: Why separate business rules from core logic? 5 bullet points summarizing why business rules are separate from core logic are read and described by the presenter.
The CCWIS design requirements as per 45 CFR 1355.53A1 clearly emphasizes the approach for modular design and why we need to separate business rules, as it is a key part of that. And let's break it down and seeing why this is so important, why we keep emphasizing on this. Think of business rules as instructions that guide how processes work. So when these instructions are tightly embedded in other words, built into or hard-coded in the system, every small change become a heavy lift. So by separating business rules from the code, application code, or the logic, you could unlock several key benefits here. First, it provides flexibility. So when rules are separated from core code, updates can be made quickly and efficiently. For example, when you have a policy or a business requirement change, it can be implemented without rewriting or redeploying or disrupting the entire system. So it saves time and effort and reduces the business risk. Next, the separation enhances scalability and reusability. You will keep hearing these words again and again. But when rules are modular, they can be extended, they can be adapted to fit the needs of other automated functions. For example, a validation rule that ensures data completeness in one module can be reused in another. Or an assignment rule designed for one function can be adjusted slightly and applied to other functions without starting from scratch. So this reduces duplication of effort, ensures consistency across business workflows, and also saves time by leveraging existing rules. The ease of maintenance is another critical advantage. When you see the rules are centralized and separated from programming logic, the system becomes easier to manage. You can see the changes can be isolated and tested without affecting other parts of the system. This obviously reduces the complexity and improves your testing accuracy, and also minimizes the risk of unintended consequences. Like when you make a change to one part of the system and it's not going to impact the entire without you knowing about it. Beyond that, separating business rules optimizes system performance. This may not be quite visible for everybody, but when you are centralizing rules, it'll eliminate bottlenecks caused by tightly embedded or built into logic, so that it ensures the system operates efficiently, even as new rules or categories are added. I can give an example, like when business rules are tightly built into multiple layers, like directly in the database, or making frequent calls to the database, or redundant calls in the back end or in the front end, it would create a system lag, or it would increases the response times, and it is very hard to streamline all the scattered rules in the system. So this separation would clearly optimize the system performance as well. Lastly, it improves alignment with compliance needs, and auditability. What I'm trying to discuss here about is a centralized approach. Like you need to easier way to track rule changes, who made them, why they were made, and when they were implemented. This ensures alignment with your policy and program needs, and also provides a clear transparency. So in summary, separating business rules from code programming logic is not just a design principle. It is a strategic way to future-proof your system. Like think it this way. When you think about the challenges of adopting to a new policy or scaling for future needs or new requirements, having separated, well-managed rules puts you in control. So with this foundation, you're not just meeting your current requirements, you're ready for emerging or evolving needs. Next slide, please.
Slide title: How to separate business rules from core logic. 5 bullet points explaining how to separate business rules from core logic are read and described by the presenter.
So this is like how to separate business rules from the core logic. We are going to discuss few strategies, and there are many more. And achieving separation requires more than just technical tools. It starts with a clear strategy. This strategy begins with assessing the rules within your system. And there is, of course, no one-size-fits-all solution, as each rule category varies in complexity, how frequently you update it, and what's the functional scope out there. For example, frequently updated rules like those driven by policy changes or complex rules with nested condition could benefit from modularity and separation so that you can manage it very clearly and efficiently. So once you have assessed the rules, what would be the next step? The next step is to organize them into distinct categories. For example, rules can be grouped into eligibility, case management, finance, validation, assignment, workload management, and security. These are all just examples, again, not an exhaustive list. Rules should be organized in a way that it is practical for you and aligns with your program's unique needs. So the goal is to simplify management. The goal is to simplify the updates and tracking while maintaining consistency. Implementing rules versioning and audit trails is also essential. The versioning provides traceability, so it will allow you to track how rules evolve over time. And audit trail further strengthen this by recording who made changes, when they were made, and the reason behind them. This ensures adaptability to evolving requirements and also supports alignment with your program and policy needs. Another critical factor is engaging business users throughout the rule lifecycle. So the collaboration between business and technical teams ensures it aligns first with your business and operational needs and how easy is to execute them, how easy is to update them. The business users play a vital role in defining and validating rules. So while IT ensures them effectively implementing the strategy, but the collaboration is key here. To manage the rules effectively, leveraging the right tools and strategies aligned with your system scope is critical. So depending on your needs, this might include built-in platform capability or a separate business rules engine or a microservices approach or a dedicated service layer or other scalable solutions. The strategy should enable a centralized management, should enable you to scale it easily, should enable you to reuse it and reduce complexity overall so that it can improve your system efficiency. Finally, assess your current capabilities and identify opportunities for implementing a scalable approach to rules management is the core idea here. Our aim is not to prescribe a specific tool, but to highlight the importance of separation here. So by following these strategies, you can create a robust rules management framework that supports consistent and efficient operations. Next slide, please.
Slide title: Business Rules, Sample Review Finding. An example of a review letter is shown on screen as it is described by the presenter. It includes the problem statement in bold, with one section of regulations listed and linked directly below it, and a section that describes the problem in detail.
And here, as my coworker said, the slide presents a sample review finding, providing an overview of what we observed and the actions needed to address it. It is again provided for illustrative purposes only. We will be discussing the scenario in more detail in one of the following examples. Next slide.
Slide title: Separation of Business Rules, Example 1. Italicized bold text describing an example problem is inside the rounded corner box, and the 4 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
Over the next 3 slides, I'll share examples of review findings, their key takeaways and strategies that we recommended to address these challenges in managing business rules. And there are many more variations too, but we'll start with business rules being embedded, meaning built into the core programming logic. In one instance, we observed that business rules were embedded, built into multiple layers, such as user interface or database and the backend application logic, without a clear separation. So this design, what it does was it created a tight coupling, which made future changes very difficult to implement. And we never know whether there is already a rules exist. So there is increased risk of rule duplication and a risk of inconsistencies. And of course, it's making it harder to adapt the system for evolving needs. So what we recommended was a more structured approach. We suggested separating them, of course, by using strategies that are appropriate for their system design and architecture. Maybe starting with a dedicated layer, separating it as a service, or if they have implemented in a platform, then platform-based tools, or if they have in their technology stack, if they have a business rules engine, maybe utilizing them or other effective approaches that's going to work for them. We also recommended them categorizing and organizing rules so that they can make the updates easier and, of course, reduce the maintenance complexity. Additionally, we also recommended them to incorporate audit trails and versioning to track rule changes so that they can have a traceability to all the rule changes that they've made. Finally, we suggested that while these approaches align with CCWIS design and project requirements, states also have the flexibility to present a business case for their design choices, demonstrating how they can meet the requirements while being effective and economical. Now, think about your own system. Like, are your business rules scattered across multiple layers, or are they centralized for easier management? Or what happens when a small change requires updates across the system? This is exactly the challenge we observed in this case, where tight coupling made even minor changes a heavy lift. And again, I wanted to emphasize why this matters. This separation allows changes to be made more efficiently without disrupting the entire system, and gives you the flexibility and gives you the scalability when you add more modules, more functions, and evolving needs. Next slide, please.
Slide title: Separation of Business Rules. Example 2. Italicized bold text describing an example problem is inside the rounded corner box, and the 4 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
This example is about over-reliance on custom coding and customization. This is like in another review, we observed that the system was using a platform and that already has the built-in capabilities as well. However, instead of fully leveraging these capabilities, they relied heavily on custom coding to manage business rules. And there is also a lack of abstraction, meaning that they did not create a separation. And this approach introduced significant limitations in terms of reusability to start with, as well as scalability. Why? Because, for example, when new functions were added, there is an excessive customization we noticed. It created one additional complexity. Like, we don't know whether there is already a similar logic exist or a similar rule exist, or can it be reused, that kind of complexity. And then we also saw, in addition to that, there was no clear strategy for categorizing rules. Plus, a related concern was lack of true versioning. Because in some reviews, we found they had deployment versioning, meaning when they release and they identified or associated with the versioning control. But this is not sufficient. Deployment versioning usually tracks your system releases. It does not provide traceability for individual rule changes or rule types or categories. So what we recommended was a true versioning within application. So to address this, we recommended several actions. First, we suggested leveraging standard platform capabilities and tools that they already have, and create components when they are custom coding or customization is applied. We recommended the focus should be on any components that they are creating or custom developing or utilizing from out of the box. It should be able to reuse across the system. Second, we suggested establishing a structured business rules management and a governance process. This means it includes integrating or collaborating with the business users throughout the rules lifecycle. The next one is about having them not only validating and testing, having them to see how it was defined and executed. And lastly, we emphasize the importance of maintaining an up-to-date documentation of platform components and their interactions, because it becomes even more critical, because this is not a traditional approach in system implementation and design. So the level of details that needs to be documented when you're utilizing a platform also plays a role. Consider this, if you are using a platform with built-in capabilities, are you fully leveraging them, or are customizations or custom coding, adding unnecessary complexity in your system. Again, I wanted to reiterate like why this matters, because over customization creates a very rigid system that are expensive to maintain and difficult to scale. So moving away from scattered rules and minimizing customization for every rule type, the system becomes easier to maintain, more consistent, and better equipped to handle changes efficiently for you. Next slide, please.
Slide title: Separation of Business Rules, Example 3. Italicized bold text describing an example problem is inside the rounded corner box, and the 3 bullet points for recommended actions are all described by the presenter.
The last example here would be like, in this case, we noticed that the state had enterprise level tools available, but chose not to use them for their CCWIS application. Instead, they again built business rules directly into the application code, meaning it could be in any layer, front end, back end, core logic, or in the database, or all the above options. This approach led to a very less flexible architecture, to say the least, and created a fragmented design because you have different tools and different strategies available at the enterprise level, but it was inconsistently applied. This made business rules management more complicated, both at the application as well as at the enterprise level. So our recommendations here was to start with an analysis of the embedded rules to understand like how they were structured and how they were actually implemented currently. And based on that analysis, we suggested them organizing and refactoring the rules with clear categories, clear separation, versioning, and governance. We also encouraged them to adopt, if appropriate, if possible, their existing enterprise business rules engine to centralize and manage rules more efficiently. Again, why this matters? Embedding rules directly into application code may work fine if we are not anticipating the rule changes due to policy or regulation or business needs, and if we don't have that many critical rule types or categories out there. But in the child welfare system, which is very complex, and in this one, embedding rules directly into application code causes a lot of issues. And in this scenario, they inconsistently use the tool or strategies that are already available to them. So that like in case if they are sharing any rules across programs, that's also going to make them miss that opportunity to create a consistent approach across the enterprise. And in summary, I just wanted business rules from core logic is not just a technical recommendation. It is a strategic approach when you think about it. The aim is to create a very flexible, scalable, and efficient systems. How can we achieve it? By implementing a structured business rules management. You look for, if you have already available tools and strategies, and the other critical component is engaging business users throughout the rules lifecycle. The states can adapt to changing requirements more efficiently and, of course, deliver better outcomes. While some of the strategies that we discussed today and examples, while these are proven strategies, support very robust business rules management, each state can adopt them or build their own business case to align with their unique needs. Ultimately, these strategies, what we would like to see, or like everyone anticipate, is like we wanted to create a system that are responsive, that are easy to update, and are centralized so that it can quickly adapt to changes, gives you the consistent outcomes. It reduces effort to maintain, and while conforming to requirements and compliance and regulation needs. Before we move on, I would like to check with Phil, are there any questions, or do any of these strategies or findings bring up questions or challenges you would like to discuss?
Yeah, thank you very much. There are a few questions, and we can go ahead and take a couple now before we move on to the sources of support. And Tiffany, I'm going to ask a question of you, and then Sujatha, there are a couple questions that come in for you as well, let you catch your breath. So Tiffany, the question for you is, are there good examples of states implementing data governance processes and oversight groups to help alleviate issues with data quality?
All right, thanks, Phil. Yes, we have seen some states with strong data governance that includes leadership and data stewards, as well as stakeholders and partners into their data governance structure. One of the crucial parts too is their participation from both the business or program and IT. They really can assist, the structure can assist with identifying some of those data quality issues and then helping the project prioritize those. Also providing ongoing monitoring of those data quality priorities and issues, and then really making it agency-wide that data quality is critical asset. We're also offering a technical assistance opportunity right now, a community to practice on the biennial data quality review. 2 cohorts are active. Our 3rd cohort will begin in January. And one of the areas we're actually talking about is data governance and learning from other states to hopefully be able to publish that information to help other states with their biennial reviews as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Slide title: Sources of support. Targeted TA. Contact your federal analyst for more information. www.acf.hhs.gov/cb/training-technical-assistance/state-and-tribal-assignments. Guidance and publications. www.acf.hhs.gov/cb/training-technical-assistance/state-tribal-info-systems/federal-guidance. Self-assessment tools. www.acf.hhs.gov/cb/training-technical-assistance/CWIS-TB-7. Webinars. www.acf.hhs.gov/cb/training-technical-assistance/state-tribal-info-systems/training.
And Sujata, I think we have a couple of questions for you as well, and then I'll let you cover the slide. So the first question is, has any vendor successfully created a business rules engine that stands alone and can be shared across modules?
Person, I'll take it. Instead of citing any state, let me focus on, can this be doable? Yes. Business rules, business rules engine, especially like when you decide on what would work, it needs to be compatible first with your technology stack and the architecture that you're aiming for. So once that is clear, and when you're planning to adapt to it, the next is as we discussed earlier, like the strategies assessing your current requirements and business rules types and categories and all that. And once that design is configured in the business rules engine, it will make it very easy to, it has a built-in capability to give you the categories to be maintained in the business rules engine. It gives you the capability to do the audit trail, the versioning. It gives you the capability to be shared across with slight modification as well. And it gives you an independent deployment and testing, meaning like you don't have to have the application downtime. You can independently test and deploy. It wouldn't impact. It will be a much faster change and much less effort once it is configured and implemented. But come back to your question, have any state? Quite a few states have utilized different business rules engine capabilities within this domain. Some of them have utilized platform built-in capabilities that has business rules engine features. And currently the platforms are also evolving. So we are seeing more updates coming in that front. And we also saw business rules engine that closely aligns with child welfare domain is also being utilized. Again, it all depends on what level of categories that you are defining and whether it is compatible with your technology stack. And of course, there are many out there in the market that do provide those capabilities.
Okay, Phil, not sure if you're there.
There we go.
A couple more questions.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure if we wanted to share these resources, but just real quickly, the links are here for you. They're also in your handouts. There's targeted technical assistance. Contact your federal analyst for more information. guidance and publications available to you, self-assessment tools, and of course, our webinars. So those links are available. I think we can take, we have time for a couple more questions. So I'll go ahead and read the next one. Looks like, does ACF have provision to do audits on microservices or separation of business logic in the beginning phases of development of the system? I don't know if it sounds like we maybe want to give a short answer to that and guidance on how they might find more information. Is that right, Alex?
Sorry, I was reading the question coming in chat. Can you repeat what you asked me?
Oh, yeah, I was just reading the question here. It looks like there are a couple of technical questions that have come in, and maybe you had some guidance for folks to check in with their analyst.
Oh, I was going to say, I was just looking at the clock and thinking that we don't have enough time left to really delve into some deep answers to some of the questions posed. They're really good questions. And I'm just proposing that we collect them, any that we haven't answered live, and send a response out afterwards. But I don't know if there are other questions still that we can address. We still have 5 more minutes here.
Yeah, I think just very briefly on the question, if I'm understanding the question right, on audits on microservices or separation of business logic in the beginning phases of development of the system, we are trying to get out earlier rather than our old CCWIS days where we came after you were developed and implemented to do our old CCWIS review. We are trying to get out and do TA monitoring reviews and TA activities.
Slide title: Questions and Answers. A reminder to use the Q&A button to type comments and questions, or email questions to cwis.questions@acf.hhs.gov.
Earlier during the developmental cycle and looking at design as part of that work, which is where we would look at that separation of business logic earlier in the development phase of the system. So hopefully I answered that question. And then the second question that was live was, we would like to understand the CCWIS design scoring sheet functionality. How is the tool implemented and used? That design scoring is on our website connected to TB Technical Bulletin number 7, and it does have a guide along with that. But I also do want to note that there is additional work being done on that area for some modifications in how we are looking at design and scoring design. Sujatha, do you have anything more to add on that?
I think you beautifully covered, Stephanie. Like, yes, we do provide some review and continued technical assistance early in the design and development phase. And yes, we could utilize the strategies that we discussed to assess it.
And a state may at any time, I mean, we look at triggers, as you'll see in Technical Bulletin number 7, for things that might trigger us to come out or start looking at timing for a review. But a state can also ask to have us come to review earlier during the design as well. You can always ask your analysts for that, and we can work with you to fit that in. And I do see one more question about, are the self-assessment tools changing? There are some modifications coming related to the design tool, and I think I kind of touched on that. As far as the other self-assessment tools at this point, no, we do not have any changes coming down the pipe on those other tools.
Awesome, thank you. I would like to draw our audience attention to the chat and/or to the screen here, because we would like your feedback.
Slide title: Webinar Satisfaction Survey. Text on screen explains how to participate in the survey with an accompanying QR code.
On the short satisfaction survey of today's webinar. So you can either scan the QR code that's located on the screen or use the link that's in the chat and give us some feedback. We do value your feedback. We try to use your feedback to improve future webinars and also to gauge potential topics that you might be interested in. Of course, your responses are voluntary and anonymous. So it should just take you less than a couple minutes to complete the survey. And with that, I would like to go ahead and thank our speakers Stephanie, Alex, Tiffany, and Sujatha, thank you very much for your presentations today. Very informative. I also want to thank our audience for being here today. Thank you for your service for children and families. And with that, that will conclude today's webinar. Thank you all for being here.